Welcome back to the channel Coin Star everyone to the channel and thank you for joining me today as we dive into one of the most fascinating, controversial, mysterious, and conversation-dominating coins ever discussed in the world of American numismatics, a humble piece of copper-colored history that many people might have overlooked in pocket change but which collectors, storytellers, and treasure hunters around the world have elevated into legend. Today we are talking about the 1-cent 1969. The United States of America Lincoln Memorial Penny, a Liberty-era icon carrying the words "In God We Trust" that on the surface appears ordinary, simple, and common, yet beneath that ordinary appearance lies a storm of stories, theories, rare error possibilities, mint mark mysteries, striking mistakes, metal composition anomalies, and production irregularities that have fueled claims of values reaching an astonishing $786 million, a figure that completely shatters the expectations of anyone who believes a 1-cent coin must always be worth exactly 1 cent, and as you listen to this story imagine yourself holding a small brown penny between your fingers, feeling its weight, seeing the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, never suspecting that this exact year, this exact Denver mint mark, and this exact combination of circumstances could transform something so small into one of the most talked about coins in the entire coin collecting universe, because the magic of the 1969 1-cent coin is not in its face value but in the potential hidden within its errors, mistakes, mint mark variations, and extraordinary production possibilities that separate the ordinary from the legendary. And to understand how such a coin could even be associated with a figure as high as hundreds of millions of dollars, we must travel back to the late 1960s, a time when America was undergoing cultural change, technological experimentation, and massive coin production to meet the demands of everyday commerce, during which the United States Mint facilities, including Denver, were operating at incredible speed, striking billions of pennies for circulation, and in such high-volume environments the risk of mistakes increased dramatically, leading to doubled dies, misaligned strikes, off-metal planchets, wrong metal compositions, rotated dies, die cracks, die clashes, over mint marks, filled mint marks, repunched mint marks, missing elements, and transitional errors that occurred when old and new designs or metal standards overlapped, and the 1969 Lincoln cent sits right at a crossroads of minting experimentation, because during this era the mint was still producing copper cents with a specific alloy composition that would later change, meaning that any deviation, contamination, or incorrect planchet could create a coin that does not conform to official standards, instantly catching the attention of collectors decades later. And when we focus specifically on the Denver mint mark, represented by the small d beneath the date, we enter an additional layer of intrigue, because mint marks were punched into dies by hand during that era, which opened the door to subtle and sometimes dramatic anomalies, such as doubled mint marks where the punch was applied more than once in slightly different positions, tilted mint marks, weak mint marks, filled mint marks that appear partially missing, or even mint marks that are strangely shaped due to die wear or damage. And while many 1969 pennies were struck normally, a microscopic percentage may exhibit rare combinations of these features that transform them from everyday coins into numismatic unicorns, and one of the most talked about possibilities connected to the 1969 era is the famous double die phenomenon, which occurs when the die used to strike the coin receives more than one misaligned impression from the hub, causing the design to appear doubled, especially noticeable on inscriptions like Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and the date, and although the most famous double die of the era is often associated with Philadelphia, the idea that a Denver minted example could exist with unique doubling patterns has fueled endless speculation, research, and treasure hunts among collectors who examine their pennies under magnification, hoping to see those telltale signs of separation, thickness, and shadowing that signal a genuine hub doubling rather than simple machine doubling. And beyond double dies there are striking errors such as off-center strikes, where the planchet is not properly seated between the dies, resulting in a coin where part of the design is missing and blank metal is visible, and while minor off-center errors are relatively common, dramatic off-center strikes retaining full dates and mint marks are far rarer and far more valuable, especially if combined with other anomalies. And imagine a 1969 penny struck significantly off-center, with bold doubling in the lettering, an unusual mint mark appearance, and possibly struck on the wrong metal entirely, creating a perfect storm of rarity that pushes the coin into theoretical valuations that defy traditional price guides, and another extraordinary category of errors involves wrong planchets, where a coin is struck on metal intended for another denomination, and during transitional periods these mistakes are more likely, so in 1969 d. 1 cent could theoretically be struck on a planchet meant for a dime, nickel, or even a foreign coin, producing a penny that is the wrong size, weight, and metallic composition, immediately standing out as an impossible object that should not exist, and numismatics has shown us time and again that coins which should not exist are often the most valuable of all, because rarity combined with official mint origin creates demand that outpaces supply infinitely, and when collectors speak of 7-figure or even 9-figure values, they are often speaking in the language of hypothetical ultimate examples, coins that represent the pinnacle of rarity, condition, and error complexity, and the 1969 D penny has become a canvas onto which these ideas are projected, not because every example is valuable, but because the possibility exists that one extraordinary specimen could embody multiple rare characteristics at once, and condition plays an enormous role as well, because a coin preserved in pristine mint state, with full original luster, razor-sharp details, and no signs of circulation, commands exponentially more value than a worn example, and when you imagine a mint-state 1969 D penny with blazing red color, flawless surfaces, and dramatic mint errors, you can begin to understand how valuations climb into unbelievable territory, especially when private collectors with deep pockets compete for ownership of singular objects, and the idea of a $786 million coin is less about a price tag one might casually expect to see on an auction listing and more about the theoretical maximum value assigned to a one-of-a-kind artifact that combines historical importance, minting mystery, and cultural fascination, because coins are not just metal, they are stories frozen in time, and the story of the late 1960s in America, marked by social change, space exploration, and industrial-scale production, adds emotional weight to these small artifacts, and there is also the psychological element of discovery, the idea that an ordinary person could find an extraordinary treasure in loose change, a bank roll, or an old jar of pennies inherited from a relative, which fuels endless searching and content consumption, and videos discussing the 1969 D penny attract massive view counts because they tap into that universal dream of hidden wealth, the possibility that something you already own could change your life, and when creators discuss extreme valuations they are often amplifying that dream, transforming a simple coin into a symbol of hope, curiosity, and excitement, and from a purely technical standpoint, collectors examining a 1969 D penny for potential high value would look at weight measurements to confirm proper or improper metal composition, use magnification to inspect lettering and mint marks for doubling, analyze strike alignment and rim integrity, search for cracks, cuts, or breaks in the die that left raised metal on the coin, and even test for magnetic properties if an incorrect alloy is suspected, because each of these factors contributes another layer of uniqueness, and uniqueness is the currency of value in numismatics, and while millions of 1969 D pennies were produced, the number of pennies with extreme, authenticated, multi-factor errors could be so small that they border on singular existence, and in that realm traditional valuation models break down, giving way to negotiation, prestige pricing, and private treaty sales, where the value is defined not by a price guide but by what someone is willing to pay for ownership of the story itself, and when a coin becomes widely known through videos, articles, and discussions, its perceived importance increases, drawing more attention, more competition, and more speculation, which further inflates its legendary status. And the Lincoln Cent series itself holds a special place in American hearts because it features one of the nation's most revered presidents, whose image has appeared on the penny for over a century, making every Lincoln Cent a small monument to national history, and the inclusion of the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse of the 1969 D penny reinforces that symbolism, connecting the coin to ideals of unity, endurance, and legacy, and when such symbolism intersects with rarity, error, and myth, the result is a perfect storm for viral fascination. The most shocking, mysterious, and controversial stories in the entire world of American coin collecting, a story that has captured the imagination of collectors, treasure hunters, historians, and everyday people who once thought a simple penny could never change their lives, and that is the unbelievable legend of the 1 cent 1982 D United States of American Lincoln penny, A small copper-colored coin that most people have held, spent, lost, or ignored, yet according to top trending views. Viral discussions, collector theories, and legendary era discoveries, this exact coin under extremely rare conditions is believed to hold a mind-blowing estimated worth of up to $666 million, a value so far beyond its face value of just 1 cent that it forces us to rethink everything we think we know about money, mistakes, and hidden treasures. So stay with me because this is not just a coin story, this is a journey into history, human error, metal science, mint chaos, and once-in-a lifetime possibilities that could still be hiding in pockets, jars, drawers, and collections right now. The 1982 D Lincoln cent stands at a crossroads in American minting history, because 1982 was the single most important transition year in the modern penny era, the year when the United States Mint changed the composition of the 1-cent coin from mostly copper to primarily zinc. Driven by rising metal prices, inflation, and economic pressure, and this one decision alone opened the door to some of the most dramatic and valuable minting errors ever rumored or discovered, especially from the Denver Mint, marked by the small but powerful D Mint mark, which instantly places this coin into a rarer category than its Philadelphia counterparts, because Denver minted errors from transitional years are already statistically scarcer due to tighter quality control and lower experimental tolerances. Yet despite those controls, 1982 produced chaos, confusion, and overlap, resulting in multiple compositions, weights, dyes, and striking methods being used at the same time, something that had never been done before at such scale, and that chaos is exactly where legendary value is born. During 1982 the Mint officially produced 7 known varieties of Lincoln cents, including large date and small date designs, copper composition and zinc composition, Philadelphia and Denver issues. But here is where the mystery deepens and the story explodes into the realm of extreme rarity, because Denver was officially not supposed to strike copper cents in 1982, yet collectors have long whispered, tested, weighed, and examined coins that appear to be genuine 1982 D copper cents, a coin that technically should not exist, a coin that defies the official mint records, a coin that if confirmed as genuine copper with a Denver Mint mark instantly becomes one of the greatest mint errors in American history. And when rarity, impossibility, and historic significance collide, values no longer follow normal logic, they explode into legend, because a coin that should never have been made becomes a physical contradiction of official history, and collectors are willing to pay unimaginable sums for proof that the system failed even once, and this is where the idea of a $666 million valuation comes into discussion, not as a simple catalog price, but as a symbolic representation of ultimate rarity, cultural obsession, collector rivalry, and the priceless nature of the impossible. The 1982 D penny is already special because 1982 was the last year pennies were struck in true copper at 95% copper and 5% zinc, weighing approximately 3.11 grams, while the new zinc pennies weigh about 2.5 grams and are only copper-plated, meaning that with nothing more than a precise scale, collectors can instantly begin separating potential treasures from ordinary change. But the Denver Mint officially switched entirely to zinc that year, which means any genuine copper 1982 D cent would be an unauthorized strike, possibly created during die testing, leftover planchet usage, or accidental feed contamination, and those types of errors are known as transitional errors, the holy grail category of coin collecting, because they document a moment of change frozen in metal, and unlike ordinary errors such as off-center strikes or minor doubling, transitional errors represent systemic failure, not just individual mistakes, and the stakes for owning such an artifact are massive. Collectors are not just buying metal, they are buying proof of history bending. Now add to this the possibility of double dies, repunched mint marks, die cracks, cuds, wrong planchet strikes, incomplete plating, or mixed alloy strikes, and the value multiplies again and again, especially when multiple errors appear on a single coin, which some collectors call a monster error. The type of coin that auction houses dream of and museums quietly compete to acquire, and rumors persist of a single 1982 D cent that combines copper composition, small date style, strong double die obverse, misaligned die strike, and an unusually sharp D mint mark that appears repunched or distorted, a combination so statistically improbable that its existence alone would rewrite numismatic reference books, and that is why the conversation around $666 million exists. Because the value is no longer tied to metal content or even normal collector demand, it becomes a symbol of the ultimate collectible. The coin that proves the mint made a mistake no one was supposed to see, and mistakes are where fortunes are born. Think about how many 1982 D pennies were produced, hundreds of millions entered circulation, billions worldwide over time have been lost, worn, or spent, yet only a microscopic fraction would ever show these traits, meaning the survival rate of such a coin is nearly zero, which drives desperation, competition, and extreme bidding behavior among elite collectors who already own every other rarity and are searching for something truly unique. The Lincoln cent itself adds emotional power to the story because Abraham Lincoln is one of the most iconic figures in American history, symbolizing unity, resilience, and sacrifice, and to own a coin bearing his image that also represents one of the greatest minting contradictions ever known is to hold history, rebellion, and chance in your hand. The obverse of the coin shows Lincoln facing right with the words liberty and in God we trust, phrases that gain almost poetic meaning when attached to a coin born from error, because liberty here represents freedom from perfection, and trust reminds us that even the most controlled systems can fail. The reverse design of the Lincoln Memorial used in 1982 further amplifies the importance because it represents national legacy, and any flaw in that design becomes a scar on history, a fingerprint of human involvement in an industrial process meant to be flawless, and collectors love fingerprints. They love proof that machines, systems, and rules can break, because that is where rarity lives, and the Denver Mint, known for its consistency, becomes the perfect stage for such a story, because a mistake from Denver carries more weight, more shock, and more credibility. The D Mint mark itself becomes a badge of rarity, especially when it appears malformed, doubled, or misplaced, which collectors refer to as mint mark errors, and even slight irregularities in the D can indicate hand-punched dies or damaged hubs, further increasing desirability. And beyond composition and mint mark issues, 1982 D pennies are also examined under microscopes for die polish lines, missing designer initials FG, weak strikes, rotated dies, and wrong metal planchets such as aluminum, brass, or even foreign blanks, all of which have been documented in other years and mints, meaning the possibility is real, not fantasy, and when multiple possibilities exist, collectors do not dismiss stories, they investigate, because every legendary coin began as a rumor that someone took seriously, and what truly drives the value into extreme territory is scarcity combined with demand and narrative. A coin valued at $666 million is not priced that way because of copper or zinc, it is priced that way because it represents a singular story that cannot be replicated, a once-in-history event that collectors, institutions, and even governments may want to own to secure cultural prestige. Imagine a coin confirmed by metallurgical analysis, historical documentation, and third-party grading as a genuine 1982 D copper small date transitional error with additional die anomalies. Such a coin would instantly become the centerpiece of the numismatic world, attracting attention far beyond coin collectors, drawing in investors, historians, museums, and the media, creating a bidding war not unlike famous artworks or historical manuscripts, where price is limited only by ego and desire. And the public fascination with extreme value stories fuels this even more, because people love the idea that something so small, so ordinary, could secretly be worth more than entire buildings, companies, or islands. It challenges our assumptions about value and luck. It tells us that the extraordinary often hides in plain sight, which is why top view videos about rare pennies attract millions of viewers, because everyone wants to believe that the next coin they check could change everything. And the 1982 D penny sits at the top of that fantasy because it exists at the intersection of documented transition, known errors, and unresolved mysteries. No official statement has ever completely closed the door on the possibility of copper 1982 D cents, leaving space for hope, debate, and discovery, and that open question alone adds value, because in collectibles, this exciting journey into the hidden world of rare American coins, a world where ordinary pocket change can transform into unbelievable wealth, and in today's video we dive deep into the fascinating story of the 1 cent 2002 United States of American Liberty coin, a coin that on the surface looks just like any other modern penny you might overlook in your daily life, but according to legends, collector speculation, and extraordinary mint error possibilities, could be valued at an astonishing $777 million, and before you dismiss that number as impossible, stay with me because the story behind this coin is filled with mystery, historical context, rare minting circumstances, overlooked production mistakes, and collector psychology that together explain why a humble 1-cent coin could theoretically reach such an unimaginable value. And as we begin, let's remember that coins are more than metal, they are time capsules, and the 2002 Lincoln cent was produced during a period of massive mint output in the United States when millions upon millions of pennies were struck to meet circulation demand, using copper-plated zinc planchets and modern high-speed minting technology, which ironically increases the chance for dramatic errors when something goes wrong at scale. And the 2002 cent carries the iconic Abraham Lincoln portrait on the obverse with the inscriptions "Liberty" and "In God We Trust," symbols deeply tied to American identity, while the reverse still features the Lincoln Memorial design that was used from 1959 to 2008, making this coin part of a historically long design run, and this long-running design is exactly why rare deviations from the standard become so valuable, because collectors spend decades studying every normal example, so when a truly abnormal piece surfaces it immediately draws intense attention. And in the case of the 2002 cent there are several theoretical and documented categories of mint errors that can elevate value from 1 cent to thousands, millions, and in extreme hypothetical cases hundreds of millions, beginning with mint mark errors, even though most 2002 cents were struck without a mint mark in Philadelphia or with D for Denver or S for proof coins from San Francisco, and now imagine a coin struck with a mismatched or impossible mint mark, such as a doubled or overpunched mint mark, or a mint mark that appears where it should not exist at all, or even a hybrid die where one side originated from a different mint facility than the other, which would instantly place the coin into legendary status among numismatists. And then we move into planchet errors, one of the most dramatic possibilities, where the coin is struck on the wrong metal, such as a leftover copper planchet from an earlier era, or even a foreign planchet intended for another denomination or country. And if a verified 2002 Lincoln cent were discovered struck on a solid copper or experimental alloy planchet, not meant for circulation, authenticated by multiple grading services, the numismatic shockwaves would be enormous, because such a coin would prove a breach in mint controls and represent a unique historical anomaly, and uniqueness is the single most powerful driver of extreme coin value. And then there are striking errors, including off-center strikes where the design is partially missing yet fully dated, broad strikes where the collar fails and the coin expands beyond its normal diameter, or multiple strike errors where the coin is struck 2, 3, or even more times with misaligned impressions. And while many of these errors exist in minor form, an extreme example combined with pristine condition could result in valuations that defy normal logic, and even more dramatic are die errors such as doubled dies, where the design elements appear doubled due to misalignment during die creation. And a strong double die on the date 2002 or on the word liberty or in God we trust could already be worth thousands or millions, but imagine a previously unknown Class 1 double die so dramatic that it visually jumps off the coin, combined with flawless surfaces and full original luster, making it a once-in-a-generation discovery. And beyond double dies we enter the realm of die clashes and mule coins, where the obverse and reverse designs do not belong together. And while mule coins are extremely rare in modern U.S. coinage, they are not impossible, and a verified 2002 Lincoln cent mule with a design meant for another denomination or another year would instantly rewrite modern mint error catalogs, and collectors and museums would compete aggressively to acquire it, driving the price into previously uncharted territory. And then we must consider transitional errors, because 2002 falls within a long period of copper-plated zinc cents. Yet transitional mistakes can occur when old stock materials or experimental dies are used accidentally, and if a 2002 cent were proven to be struck with an experimental composition or transitional metal not officially released, it would join the ranks of coins like the 1943 copper cent or the 1944 steel cent, both of which have sold for extraordinary sums, and those historical precedents are crucial to understanding how a penny can reach legendary value, because once collectors accept that a cent can be worth millions, the psychological barrier is broken, and $777 million, while extreme, becomes a symbolic number representing the absolute peak of rarity, condition, historical importance, and cultural fascination. And speaking of condition, grading plays a massive role in coin valuation, because a coin with an incredible error but poor condition loses much of its appeal, while one preserved in mint state or proof-like condition, with no wear, minimal marks, and strong eye appeal, multiplies its value exponentially, and imagine a 2002 cent error preserved immediately after striking, never circulated, stored in ideal conditions, later discovered and encapsulated with a perfect or near-perfect grade, its surfaces glowing with original brilliance, making it not just a mint error but a work of accidental art. And collectors do not just buy coins, they buy stories, and the story of discovering such a coin perhaps in a bankroll, a forgotten jar, or an inherited collection adds emotional power that fuels bidding wars. And beyond physical errors there is also the role of documentation and certification, because for a coin to reach stratospheric value it must be authenticated by the top grading services, studied by experts, published in numismatic journals, and discussed endlessly in the collecting community, and each layer of verification adds legitimacy, reducing doubt and increasing demand, and demand is where prices truly explode. Because if multiple ultra-wealthy collectors believe that owning the single most famous modern US cent will secure their legacy in numismatic history, the bidding can reach surreal levels, and this is where the idea of a $777 million valuation becomes conceptually possible, not because of metal content or face value, but because of symbolic dominance, owning the most talked about penny ever known. And the 2002 Lincoln cent is particularly powerful in this narrative because it represents the modern era. An age when people assume nothing rare can still be found, making any extraordinary discovery even more shocking, and this shock value translates directly into media attention, viral videos, mainstream news coverage, and crossover interest from investors outside traditional coin collecting, and as more eyes focus on a single coin, the price becomes less about traditional numismatics and more about cultural icon status, similar to famous artworks. And it is also important to understand that values discussed in sensational stories often represent potential or speculative peak values rather than routine market prices, yet speculation itself drives interest, encouraging people everywhere to check their change, fueling the dream that anyone could find something life-changing, and that dream is one of the strongest forces in collecting. And when we talk about mistakes and errors we are really talking about human and mechanical imperfection, tiny misalignments, brief lapses in quality control, or rare overlaps in production processes, all occurring within massive industrial systems designed to produce uniformity, which makes the rare exception infinitely more fascinating than the rule. And the Lincoln Cent series is especially beloved because it has been part of American life for over a century, passing through countless hands, making every rare example feel personal and relatable, and the year 2002 sits quietly within this long timeline, overshadowed by earlier wheat cents and famous wartime errors, yet that quietness is exactly what makes a hypothetical ultra-rare 2002 cent so dramatic, because it challenges assumptions and reawakens excitement in modern coinage. And for collectors and viewers alike the key takeaway is awareness, examining coins carefully, understanding that value does not always come from age, but from rarity, condition, and story, and whether or not a $777 million 2002 cent ever officially exists. The possibility itself keeps the hobby alive, inspiring treasure hunts in everyday life, and reminding us that history can still surprise us in the smallest forms. And as we continue exploring coins like this one, remember that every penny has potential, every detail matters, and sometimes the most extraordinary value hides in the most ordinary places, waiting for the right eyes to recognize it. The most fascinating and unbelievable stories in modern American coin history, a story that begins with a humble piece of copper-plated zinc that most people would ignore in their pocket change, the 1 cent 2010 United States of America coin, a coin that on the surface looks ordinary, common, and almost worthless, yet beneath that ordinary appearance lies a world of mystery, rare possibilities, minting errors, dramatic production mistakes, and extraordinary circumstances that have pushed collectors, investors, and treasure hunters to dream about values as high as $999 million, making this single cent one of the most talked about modern era coins. So sit back, relax, and stay with me, because once you understand what makes the 2010 1 cent Liberty coin so special, you may never look at loose change the same way again. The year 2010 sits at a unique crossroads in American coinage history because it came immediately after the massive economic crisis of 2008 and 2009 when the United States Mint was under tremendous pressure to produce coins quickly, cheaply, and in enormous quantities to keep the economy functioning smoothly. during this time cost-cutting measures were strict, materials were sourced in huge volumes, machinery ran at extreme speeds, and quality control was stretched to its limits, and whenever the mint operates under such pressure, the likelihood of errors, mistakes, and rare anomalies rises dramatically. The 2010 1-cent coin features the iconic Abraham Lincoln portrait on the obverse with the familiar inscriptions "Liberty" and "In God We Trust" along with the date 2010, while the reverse showcases one of the Lincoln bicentennial designs that debuted in 2009 and continued into 2010 circulation, celebrating Lincoln's life and legacy, and while millions upon millions of these coins were struck at the Philadelphia and Denver mints, only a microscopic number escaped the mint with errors so extreme, so unusual, and so historically intriguing that they transformed a face value of 1 cent into a potential fortune beyond imagination. One of the most discussed factors that drives the astronomical $999 million speculation is the presence of unique mint mark errors and transitional mistakes, especially involving phantom mint marks, doubled or repunched mint marks, missing mint marks where one should exist, or even the impossible appearance of a mint mark that officially was not supposed to be on that coin at all. For example, a 2010 1-cent coin bearing an S mint mark intended for proof coins only but appearing on a circulation strike would instantly shock the numismatic world. Such an error would represent a breakdown in mint protocol that has almost never happened in modern U.S. coinage, and if verified, graded, and authenticated by top grading services, such a coin would not just be rare, it would be legendary. The type of piece that museums would want, elite collectors would fight over, and history books would reference for generations. Another mind-blowing possibility involves wrong planchet errors where a 2010 1 cent was struck on a metal blank intended for another denomination or even another country. Imagine a 2010 Lincoln cent struck on a silver dime planchet, a copper nickel planchet, or an experimental alloy never meant for circulation. The weight, color, sound, and magnetic properties of such a coin would immediately stand out, and when paired with the correct design details, it would represent an impossible hybrid created by chance and error inside the mint. These wrong planchet errors are already extremely valuable in earlier decades, but a confirmed modern-era example tied to the economic stress period of 2010 could push values to unprecedented levels, especially if only one example is known. Adding to this is the potential for double die errors where the coin design was impressed twice at slightly different angles, creating dramatic doubling on Lincoln's face. The date, the word liberty, or the national motto, while minor doubling is common, a strong double die obverse or reverse with extreme separation visible to the naked eye is exceptionally rare for 2010 cents, and if a one-of-a-kind double die with massive spread were discovered, collectors would immediately recognize it as a modern classic. Another powerful driver behind the $999 million discussions is the concept of unique off-metal experimental strikes, during times of rising metal costs. The United States Mint has quietly tested alternative compositions for coins. If even a single 2010 cent were struck on an experimental metal never approved for circulation and accidentally released, it would represent a secret fragment of mint history, something never intended for public hands, and numismatists place enormous value on coins that reveal hidden chapters of mint experimentation. Even more incredible are stories of blockage errors where one coin becomes stuck in the press and impresses its mirror image onto the next blank, creating a coin with one normal side and one ghostly, reversed impression. When such blockage errors occur at multiple strikes or combine with other mistakes like off-center alignment or clipped planchets, their uniqueness multiplies, and uniqueness is the ultimate fuel of extreme value, because when a coin truly has no equal, the market cannot compare it to anything else, allowing prices to soar based purely on demand, legend, and prestige. Then there are mule errors, among the rarest and most dramatic of all mint mistakes, where a coin is struck using mismatched dies. Imagine a 2010 Lincoln cent obverse paired with a completely different reverse not intended for a cent, such as a design from another denomination or even a foreign die accidentally mounted. A mule error of this nature would rewrite the record books and instantly become one of the most important modern coins ever discovered, and when people talk about nine-figure valuations, this is the type of error they envision, one that represents not just a mistake but an impossibility. Another layer of intrigue comes from extreme die clashes and retained die breaks that create unusual raised lines, cracks, or shattered patterns across the coin's surface. While minor die cracks are common, A retained cud that dramatically alters Lincoln's portrait or distorts the lettering into abstract forms can be visually stunning and highly desirable. Collectors are drawn not only to rarity but to visual impact, and a coin that tells its story through dramatic damage caused during minting captures attention in a way few others can. Beyond physical errors, provenance plays a huge role in perceived value. Imagine a 2010 cent discovered inside a sealed mint bag that sat untouched for years, or found by a mint employee who documented the circumstances of its escape, or accompanied by credible evidence linking it to a specific malfunctioning press during a known production incident. Documentation transforms a rare coin into a historic artifact, and when rarity meets documentation, the sky becomes the limit. The psychology of collectors must also be understood. At the top levels of numismatics, buyers are not just purchasing metal, they are buying stories, prestige, and the thrill of owning something no one else can ever have. Ultra-wealthy collectors often seek the ultimate prize, a coin so rare and famous that it defines their collection, and for such buyers, spending hundreds of millions is not about profit but legacy. A unique 2010 1-cent error could become that ultimate trophy, especially as modern error coins gain respect alongside classic rarities. Population reports also influence value dramatically. If only one verified example exists in the highest grade with no others even close, competition becomes fierce. Because there is no alternative, grading plays a crucial role as well. A flawless or near flawless error coin graded at the top of the scale preserves every microscopic detail of the mistake, enhancing both beauty and desirability. A perfect storm of condition rarity and error rarity is where extreme valuations are born. It is also important to understand that speculation itself drives interest. When rumors of a $999 million coin spread online, curiosity explodes, more people check their change, more discoveries are made, and sometimes that collective attention brings hidden treasures to light, even if only a fraction of the claims are ever proven. The excitement keeps the market alive and constantly evolving. The 2010 1-cent exists in vast quantities, but within that ocean of ordinary coins may hide a handful of extraordinary survivors, overlooked, forgotten, or misidentified for years, waiting for someone with knowledge and curiosity to recognize them. This is what makes coin collecting so thrilling. The idea that history and fortune can exist in something so small and seemingly insignificant. Every scratch, every misalignment, every unusual mark tells part of a story written by machines, people, and moments of human error, and sometimes those stories become priceless. As more collectors turn their attention to modern coins, recognizing that today's pocket change can become tomorrow's museum pieces, the spotlight on coins like the 2010 1-cent grows brighter, pushing values higher and legends further. Whether or not a $999 million example ever officially changes hands, the possibility itself reshapes how we view modern coinage, transforming cents from overlooked nuisances into potential icons of rarity and value. So the next time you hold a 2010 1-cent in your hand, remember that you are holding a piece of American history. Today we are diving straight into one of the most talked about modern American coins, the 1-cent 2014 United States of American Liberty coin, a coin most people have spent without a second thought, yet whispered about in collector circles as a possible $222 million phenomenon. And in this video we are going to explore why this simple copper-colored cent is considered by many to be dramatically different from its humble 1-cent face value, how rare mint errors, mistake strikes, mint mark irregularities, transitional planchet accidents, die clashes, off-metal strikes, double dies, misaligned presses, experimental compositions, and undocumented mint anomalies could transform a common-looking penny into one of the most valuable modern coins ever imagined. And why searching your spare change might still matter today, because history has proven again and again that extraordinary value often hides in the most ordinary places. So as we begin, let's understand the background of the 2014 1-cent, officially known as the Lincoln Shield cent, struck by the United States Mint with the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Union Shield on the reverse symbolizing national unity. But within that official design lies a world of microscopic details where value is born or destroyed, because coin value does not come from age alone, it comes from rarity, condition, demand, and above all errors that should never have happened but somehow did. The year 2014 is interesting because the U.S. Mint produced billions of cents across Philadelphia and Denver, yet within those billions, machines ran at extreme speeds, dyes wore down, metal compositions were carefully monitored but sometimes mixed, and quality control systems though advanced were never perfect, and when even a tiny deviation occurred the result could be an error coin that escaped into circulation unnoticed, creating the conditions for legendary rarity. Now the idea of a $222 million $1 may sound unbelievable, but history gives us context. Coins like the 1943 copper Lincoln cent, the 1944 steel cent, the 1955 double die penny, and unique pattern coins have sold for hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars not because they were intended to be rare but because they were never meant to exist, and collectors pay astronomical sums for impossibilities. And this is where the 2014 cent enters the conversation, because during this period the mint was using advanced copper plated zinc planchets, yet experimental testing of alternative metals, die hub revisions, and increased production pressure created opportunities for mistakes. One of the most talked about possibilities is an off-metal strike where a 2014 cent was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination or even a foreign coin. Imagine a 2014 Lincoln cent struck on a silver dime planchet, a brass foreign blank, or a transitional alloy left in a hopper. Such a coin would weigh incorrectly, appear visually strange, and if authenticated could instantly become unique or one of a handful known. Another possibility is a transitional error involving the wrong metal composition entirely, just as 1943 copper cents were struck when steel was intended. A hypothetical 2014 cent struck on a pure copper or experimental alloy planchet could represent a mint mistake of historic proportions, and if only one example exists collectors and institutions would compete fiercely, driving prices into unimaginable territory, especially when wealthy collectors are chasing the next headline record. Then there are double die errors where the coin design is doubled due to misalignment during the die creation process, not machine doubling but true hub doubling, and if a 2014 cent were discovered with extreme, dramatic doubling on Lincoln's portrait, date, or inscriptions such as Liberty or In God We Trust, especially if unreported previously, that variety alone could redefine modern error collecting, because major double dies from the 1950s are already legendary, and a new discovery in pristine condition could ignite massive demand. Mint mark errors add another layer. The 2014 cents were produced primarily at Philadelphia with no mint mark and Denver with a D mint mark, but if a mint mark was punched incorrectly, missing where it should exist, doubled, tilted, over-punched, or placed in an abnormal position never documented before, collectors would immediately recognize its importance. Because mint mark varieties are finite and highly studied, and anything new draws attention from grading companies, auction houses, and investors, then we move into die errors, such as die cracks, cuds, retained cuds, die breaks, and progressive die states. While many minor examples are common, an extreme die break creating a dramatic raised area or missing design section on a 2014 cent could represent a spectacular showpiece, especially if it displays a dramatic visual that captures media attention, because in today's coin market, visual impact matters almost as much as rarity. Another fascinating possibility is a wrong design error, such as a mule coin where the obverse and reverse are mismatched between different designs or denominations. Though extraordinarily rare in modern U.S. coinage, documented mules have sold for 6 and 7 figures. And if a 2014 Lincoln obverse were paired with an incorrect reverse never intended for a cent, the resulting coin would be an instant legend, pushing valuations into unprecedented territory. Planchet errors also come into play, including clipped planchets where metal is missing, incomplete blanks, rolled thin strips, or improperly sized blanks resulting in partial strikes. While many of these exist, a unique example tied specifically to a known mint malfunction could elevate a coin's status dramatically. Add to that strike-through errors where grease, debris, or foreign objects interfered during striking, creating mysterious voids, missing details, or unusual textures, and suddenly you have a coin that tells a story of mechanical chaos frozen in metal. Collectors love stories, and the bigger and stranger the story, the higher the price climbs. Condition is the multiplier, because an error alone is not always enough. If the coin survived in uncirculated or proof-like condition with sharp details, original luster, and minimal handling, its desirability multiplies exponentially. And if such a coin were authenticated by a top grading service and designated as a unique or finest known example, competitive registry set collectors would fight to own it. pushing prices higher with each auction cycle. Modern markets also play a role, because unlike the past, information spreads instantly through social media, online forums, and video platforms, meaning a sensational discovery can go viral overnight, attracting not only traditional numismatists but also investors, speculators, and even celebrities looking to own a piece of history. And when new money floods a niche market, prices can skyrocket beyond traditional expectations, creating headline figures that shock the general public. And the idea of a $222 million valuation is rooted in this perfect storm of uniqueness, narrative, condition, and global attention. Imagine a scenario where a single 2014 cent is proven to be the only example struck on a unique experimental metal never authorized, authenticated by metallurgical testing, confirmed by mint records, and preserved in near-perfect condition. Museums would want it, private collectors would want it, national institutions would want it, and auctions would become battlegrounds where price limits dissolve, because ownership becomes about prestige rather than logic. And history shows us that when something truly one of a kind appears, price becomes secondary to desire. And even if such a value seems impossible now, coin history is full of impossible moments that became reality, which is why collectors examine every 2014 cent carefully, weighing them, inspecting edges, magnifying inscriptions, comparing known varieties, because the next discovery might already be sitting unnoticed in a jar or drawer. And even lesser errors from 2014 still command impressive premiums compared to face value, reinforcing the idea that no coin year should ever be ignored. As technology evolves, new testing methods sometimes reveal secrets in coins long thought ordinary, and what is dismissed today might be reclassified tomorrow as a significant mint anomaly, and that ongoing potential keeps the hunt alive. So when you look at a 2014 1 cent, remember you are not just holding 1 cent, you are holding a product of high-speed machinery, human oversight, and chance, where a tiny deviation could mean the difference between spare change and life-changing wealth. And whether or not a $222 million example has been confirmed, the possibility alone fuels imagination, drives searching, and keeps numismatics exciting, because every legendary coin started as an unnoticed mistake, and the next one could still be out there waiting to be discovered.